Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. Now I know that the setup is a bit probably shaky and the lighting is a bit weird. This is a very spontaneous video and the setup might be happening in other videos as well, because as crappy the lighting is, it's still as bright as I can get, especially after filming filming after uni. Not that I'm doing that now, but it's around 8 p.m. here now, but I had to film this video because I think you all know, if you are a creator in some sort, that if an idea pops into your head, you have to do it immediately, or at least I am that way. If something pops into my head and it has that moment of when it just clicks, I have to do it as soon as I can, which is now. I'm actually in my pajamas, but I felt like putting on some lipstick just to for myself. Let's not get into that. It's not at all the topic of that video, and this is generally going to be a very chatty video, but a video very dear to my heart, and it's inspired by a lot of things. And yeah, I mean, you can read the title. You know, what I will be touching upon in this video. But as I said, this video is inspired by 3 videos and 1 channel, sort of. But you will get what I mean once I talk about that. Now, the first video I wanted to name is one I just stopped watching, and that gave me that spark of an idea, or this idea for this video that I probably had in mind the whole time, but couldn't puzzle it together. It's almost like when you write a book, or you have an idea for a book, but it never really works out, and then it clicks. That's how it went for me. I just watched Matthew's newest video, which I will be linking in the description box, and he, inspired by a book he recently read, looked at the concept of what would happen to the world, but also to books, if certain aspects of our world would disappear. And one prompt, or one thing that he chose to speculate about what would happen if it disappeared, was culture. And hearing him talk about the different aspects actually made this idea I had in my head make so much more sense, and a personal question I've been struggling with. And I sound very cryptic, but bear with me. In my head seems so it almost immediately made complete sense when it was something that I was struggling with a bit, especially since joining this community. And that is actually the simple question of why I read. And you could think that it would be an easy answer, and a lot of people answer it with they read for entertainment, or I almost used to answer it with I read to learn, which is still true, very much so. But yeah, it's not like the complete answer. You will understand. Just bear with me to that question. And I always struggled with certain aspects of like a community sense of reading, because it felt like you either or like this community and the different communities or sub-communities I have interactions with, it almost felt like you either read for the pleasure of reading and for the choice of reading, whatever that entails, may that be learning, may that be entertainment, whatever that has within, or you want to find the true masterpiece of high literature. And I always felt disconnected, and I'm not saying that those are the two only sides, but those are the two main sides I felt were being portrayed on this community. And I always felt so disconnected to those two ideas, to find the one true book that has the greatest literature of all time and the greatest, hit the camera, the greatest writing of all time and the most groundbreaking ideas, or to find a book that brings you so much joy and that's it. And I always struggled with that, because I felt like that's not why I read, and how, especially not how I see books. And another video that inspired this video is Debbie over at the Book Ponderers video on her rating system and how she rates books and the thought that goes into books. And she there mentions that she struggles to adapt to the idea of like rating a book high because it has a high literary merit, if she did not connect to the book in sort of like a personal way. And I really agreed with that statement, but I never quite understood why that is. Like, it sounds silly because it could be the obvious answer. If you are not connecting to a book, then you won't like it. But I knew it was something more, and it has to do with what I see books as. So we are getting closer to the solution. And then another video that another theme that I was introduced by this video was the aspect of can we judge different literary or like bookish genres objectively, as in, is one genre objectively better than the other? And I was introduced to this discussion by Mark over at Words Everywhere with his discussion and his opinion on objectivity in art in general. And I will link that in the description below, as I'm not going to repeat his arguments, which I think are very, very interesting and valid. I will just link it down below because it doesn't really directly matter to my issue I was having. But while listening to him talk about it and write down my comment, I realized I just could never think objectively, or like objectively think one genre is better than another. And I also struggled to understand why that was. Like, why did I have that feeling that I didn't think it would be possible for me personally to look at a book genre objectively and say that it's better than another genre. And it not only has to do with the fact that I don't think that is possible. I could almost be convinced about that, even though I don't think, and I explained that in the comment on the Mark's videos, that is necessarily possible, but it's not my personal issue with it. So I kept thinking, and then I remembered that I'm really enjoying and gave a shout out to her channel, Tiffany's channel, over at Hierarchy of Reads. And I mentioned in my shout outs that I really love her channel because she brings in the psychology aspect of books and like has that perspective on books. And hearing Matthew talk about the disappearance, a possible or imaginative disappearance of culture, Debbie's argument of she could never rate a book high just for its literary brilliance, whatever that means, and hearing Mark's thoughts and adding them with my thoughts on how I felt that I could never objectively say that one genre is better than another, plus the aspect of that I am enjoying Tiffany's channel a lot for the psychology perspective, that while watching Matthew's video clicked and finally answered my question. And you are probably like really annoyed right now because I'm so much rambling about it, but like I wanted to show you my thought process that I had alongside discovering like what I'm going to talk about now, and that's why I read. And I sort of wanted to let you be part of that stream of consciousness that was in my head the whole time. So hopefully this part will now be more coherent. I found out why I'm reading and how I see books, that especially, and that's what probably is the title, why I read and how I see books, because I realized that I personally, and that's probably like it all made sense, and if you are like in this mini identity crisis where you question your choices and you're never quite sure why you did it, it's also a reason why I changed my studies and realized that it's nowhere near where I want to be in a career path, or I want to even study like the bookish material, like material. Sorry, I still look at books in my popular culture studies, but not in the way that I did with my German studies. And when it sort of clicks, and so much of what you've been struggling with, like it's not a massive struggle, but like when it's really, you think about it and you struggle to find a solution to what is that missing puzzle piece that doesn't make sense, and what is it that makes it all not make sense to you. I found out, getting to the part where it's probably more coherent, that books to me are a part of culture, a part of a popular culture but like also of a daily culture, of building cultures, building a country's culture, building a personal culture in sense of like popular culture. It is part of that, which is why I don't think you give, or like I don't fit in the category of reading a book for like entertainment, joyful, like, you know, those purposes, just to maybe escape, engage in a other world, and a fantasy world, an other world that is not like yours, a contemporary world that is different to yours. And on the other hand, I was not connecting with the aspect of I need to find the literary masterpiece, because I am reading to learn, and there we get the aspect of learning again. I read to learn about culture, and I analyze books based on a cultural merit. Like if I look at symbolism within a book, I don't look at it in a literary and in an almost literary scientific way, but like in a greater cultural context, in a personal cultural context, and probably even in a psychologically cultural context. What it means to a psychological culture almost within you, if that makes any sense. And that, when that clicked, so much of my struggles finding my voice on this channel, on the community, in real life, with studying, with what I want to do in jobs, with how I'm reading, how I act when I confront myself with maybe symbolism in a book, a writing style, themes. I'm a very thematically focused reader. I'm not at all a genre reader. I don't pick books based on the genres. I pick books based on the themes they explore. And when I realized that, and when I realized that I look at books through what their cultural impact, may that be a general popular culture impact, a cultural impact in a much bigger sense, or just a personal cultural aspect. When I realized that, there was such a relief in it, because I felt like I could talk much more, not honest, but maybe more truthful to myself about books on here. And I much less struggled to find my place in a community, because I found my place within myself. If that sounds probably super like spiritual, and it's not at all, which is not a bad thing per se, but that's not what I'm aiming for. But I found myself and my standpoint on literature and books, and I saw how I see books. Not that I say that the way you see books is wrong, it just never worked for me. I never could solely analyze a book just on a literary, almost scientific basis. And even within that, if you look at it, what do you discuss in a literary discussion, like in class, for example? Or if you pick apart a book, you look at the themes and motives within a book, and that is within a greater cultural concept. whatever that may be. And I saw that as such a relief when I found out I didn't need it to be put in one of those boxes, and I didn't need to adapt to one part of reading and one part of any community. I could be someone who watches different aspects of that, but also have like my very own thing. And just because I don't click with the two major aspects of what I think defines this community doesn't mean that I cannot present that to you, and I cannot share with you what books, how I see books, or for what I see books. And that's a part of a bigger, a smaller aspect of any type of culture, like smaller in like smaller cultures. That's what I meant. So to have that, and to it finally having clicked and realizing how I actually look at books and what purpose I give to books, and not having to just trot along, because I always try to make the literary analysis, which is great, but not like how it has a lot of overlaps, but it's not the exact same, and I could never just do that, and there was always something missing, even if in my studies, and they always pointed it out and said, oh, that was not too, where did you find that in the text, or where did you get that from, or base that on a literary concept we studied. And it was always missing that, because I was pulling from a greater cultural understanding and not just literary theory. Like I based a lot of my essays not completely on literary theory, and that was always pointed out to me, rightfully so, and in a very nice way, and it didn't matter, because they really still often liked my what I had to say. But like, it all pushed me into that direction of finding out what reading meant to me and what books stand for myself. And I know someone who might not be a dedicated reader will sit here and watch this and think, what the actual heck is she talking about? But I think you who also love reading so much that you have channels or watch BookTube, you know that it is important to sort of have a reasoning behind why you enjoy reading so much and what you want to get from books. And I always struggle to pinpoint that, and I'm someone who really wants to understand the processes I'm in. So it was quite a relief, and I hope like you sort of enjoyed this type of video. Again, I wanted to purposefully let you get through that stream of consciousness. I know it could be quite jarring to listen to, but I hope it was alright, because I really wanted to let you feel about how I felt going through that process with finding out what books mean to me. And it's not that I think I felt uncomfortable, but it almost felt like I was not good enough, because I was not looking at it in a literary theory way, and I was looking at, what was a book I read? Like, I was looking at a chocolate novel the same way as I would look at probably Ulysses. You know what I mean? And I know that everyone, like every part of each of that sub-community I was talking about, would look at me and say, you cannot compare those two things. You cannot look at them the same way. But that's what I'm doing. Like, that is how my mind is working when it comes to reading. I look at both things in a cultural perspective, and what thematically and like motive wise and topic wise, what do they do say me about a culture. That's why I can look at both those books in the same way. And someone who looks at books in a very literary theory and analytical way will look at me being totally surprised and shocked almost when I say I read it with the same look as I read a chocolate novel. And someone who reads chocolate for like the engagement and for the joy and fun of reading it will look at me shocked and surprised if I say I look at it the same as I look at Ulysses. And if I look at a YA novel the same way I look at a classic, it, like, I always felt like I was looked down upon from each side, because from like people who read classic, I was looked down upon because I was reading other things, YA, genre fiction, or whatever you want to call it, chocolate and everything else than just literary things. And from the other side, I was looked down upon because I enjoy reading classics and literary stuff. And I always felt like, what is happening here? And I found out like it's because of why I read, not like that looking down upon. I realized that it probably is just in my head, but you know, I was sort of then realizing, I was questioning myself basically. Why do I read so varied? And it's because I look at things thematically, because I see them as something that can teach me about culture in the big sense that it is. I was looking at it as, how do you explore that theme? And the classic and the YA book can explore the same theme in different ways, and therefore I can look at them and see how both of them look at that theme. And maybe, shockingly for maybe some of you, the YA book did it much better than the classic. And that's what I'm going to judge the books by. I'm giving the classic a lower rating than the YA because I don't think it explored the theme well enough for me, because that's how I see books and how I read and what books mean to me. I will not push the rating of a classic just because it's a classic, because that's not how I look at books. I pick books up in bookstores, online. I listen to your recommendations because I enjoy the theme. So yeah, that's basically just it. I wanted to let you be part of my stream of consciousness journey to figure out why I read and what books mean to me and how I see books. So yeah, that is it. Sorry for this very confusing video, but I hope it made sense, and please, please, please let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for watching. I will see you when I see you, hopefully more thought out, but I hope you enjoyed this kind of experiment, and yeah, I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching. Bye.